This is Tom O'Neill of The Envelope with Ivana Primorac, who is in the Oscar Bake-Off for Best Makeup for the Reader. And you just got a shout-out from Kate Winslet at the Golden Globes in her acceptance speech. What did she say? Something like, "Thank you for making me look so ugly," or old?
She did, yes, she did. She mentioned the whole team and mentioned the fact that we were responsible for a whole transformation, yes.
So how do you do that? How do you make someone look old effectively? What are the tricks?
The tricks are, the technology's developed hugely in the last few years. There's some really amazing technologies out there. But what's really difficult is that you do, in a movie like The Reader, you have long, very difficult, intimate scenes, and you know that the actors are going to have to walk away from you and spend a lot of time rehearsing, and once they get into the scene, they have to not be touched and retouched. So you have to consider that, I think. You can't do something that you'll need to fix all the time or go in and interrupt them, because that's just not how they work.
And how do you assure that it doesn't run, that it doesn't smear?
So you have to design it with that in view. You have to design it in view that maybe if you're outside and it starts raining, that things don't fall apart. If it's sweaty, that it doesn't fall apart. You have to consider your environment and your subject matter. So you have to adjust certain things you have to maybe not do if it's not going to be effective. So it's in that way hard, but techniques out there are pretty advanced, and there's some very clever people inventing new things all the time.
So what are the things you accentuate on a face to make someone look old? Are these lines here, or what gets touched up?
So what we very quickly realized in this movie is that everyone ages differently. And I, in fact, took a lot of time to actually look at a lot of websites like Flickr, and which ordinary people post their family photos. And you can see in every family, in every different age group, the examples of every kind of combination of types of aging. Now, what we also did is we had to invent a language which would be acceptable for people to understand the story and the relationship of age with these people. So if Ray Fiennes looks 40 all the time, we have to then make Kate look 15 years older than him, because she was 15 years older than the kid.
Yeah.
And that was talked about in the movie. So that was our challenge. So what we actually did with Kate, we studied her family. And we studied her family, her mother and her father and her grandmother, to see how they aged. And quite often what happens is if one area of the face goes, like if someone's neck is not in the best shape, it doesn't mean that they've got terrible eye bags. It's not all that just goes terribly wrinkly and old. It's the combination of stuff that will make them look older. So you have to carefully choose what that might be to achieve that effect.
You've done many movies, actually. You've done Atonement, Sweeney Todd, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Hours, Cold Mountain. You have made the Oscar shortlist on several of those, right? Which ones? The Hours was one.
The Hours was the first one. Then the second one was, I believe, Sweeney Todd. Oh, no, Cold Mountain. Then Sweeney Todd, and now The Reader.
And you specialize in Johnny Depp and Nicole Kidman, is that it?
I've worked a few times with both of those.
So you are the one responsible for the plastic nose for Nicole Kidman. I always think that was the cinch that got her the Oscar, you know.
Well, I was part of the team that was responsible for that, actually. But it was actually Anne Roth's idea, I have to say, who was a costume designer. And she thought, we were looking at pictures of Virginia Woolf, and we did such a good job with Nicole's transformation. We all suddenly looked at her and said, well, the only thing that's different is her nose. And Anne said, why don't we just go and do it? So we just went for it.
Now, which of those movies you were shortlisted for?
I was actually never nominated.
You were not nominated, but you made the Bake-Off. That's what I mean,
I was only in the Bake-Offs for all those four movies. For The Hours, for Cold Mountain, for Sweeney Todd, and now for The Reader. Now,
we are at the Hollywood Museum standing in front of the costume displays for Sweeney Todd. Check out these raccoon eyes that you gave to Johnny Depp. That was brilliant. Who cooked up that idea?
Well, I have to say that was Johnny and Tim. Because that's a bit of a Tim. I have to say Helena Bonham Carter has a lot to do with it as well. That's a Tim kind of trademark. He paints a lot of pictures as well. He's an artist. And he always paints those kind of figures and people. So that was something that was very important to them. But it was kind of, so we tested quite a lot to find the way how to do that and how to make Helena and him look very similar, but no one else, and for it not to look weird, which only in Tim's movies is possible.
What do you think is in the minds of Oscar voters that they are, to be brutally honest about this, suckers for movies where people age? It certainly helped Marion Cotillard last year probably win Best Actress. They love it. Is it just because it helps them see the span of a character so much?
I think so. I think so. It used to be a saying that if you did a funny accent, it was always certainly told about Meryl Streep. If you do a funny accent, or if you do a movie with a strong character, like any kind of abnormal situation, that you will win an Academy Award. But I do think I think usually with a film where there's aging, there is usually an age span. So you'll see a huge development of the character. And it's always, and still is, famously, is one of the hardest things to achieve.
But now it's being achieved through CGI so much, and you have a Benjamin Button. I'd love to know what you think of this, where someone's aging backwards, and so much of it is computer generated.
Well, I think even till last year, when I came to the Bake-Offs for Sweeney Todd, there was a little clause in the questionnaire that everyone has to fill in to be able to be considered for the Academy Award, which used to say, if you are aware of any work that's been digitally tampered with, we need to know, because we're not going to consider that work. Nowadays, to this year, it clearly said, explain how much it has been done. So it's clearly the future of our industry. And I haven't seen the movie yet, Benjamin Button, but I've seen many, many clips and seen that 10-minute clip today. It's a phenomenal
You were at the Bake-Offs today at the Academy.
I was at the Bake-Offs today. And it's the future of our industry. It's a phenomenal combination, and possibilities are endless. And what I think is fantastic about it is you can also help the actors, because you can cut down in makeup time.
Tell us about the Bake-Off process here and what happened today. And it's interesting how the Oscars are very open with the process, that there's an elimination, there's stages. We see exactly how it progresses, which I think is a great thing. What happened today, for example, when you were there?
It's a very, very impressive system. What they do is the Academy the branch meets 3 times a year. And they know which is the last batch of movies which they got considered for this year. And they very carefully consider all the movies which came out after that. So they carefully want to include all of the films in this particular calendar year. So that's why they meet 3 times a year, and everyone has to watch these movies that are coming up, discuss them, and put them on shortlists. So by meeting 3 times a year, all the Academy members are very, very familiar with all the work and how difficult it is, the budget size, and all the very important things that actually matter. And then they meet for the last time just before, I think, in November or December, and they shortlist 7 films. But they discuss this in detail, and they're very diligent about that. And I am very, very respectful, and I think the process is brilliant. And you are there with your peers and with people that you respect and that you admire their work for years. And they ask you questions.
Oh,
and
wow.
They ask you questions which are very, very practical.
This is what happened today, then.
Which is what happened today. And so you basically present your movie by showing the 10-minute clip. And then you say a little bit, you introduce your film. And then the members of the Academy literally ask you questions. It could be practical or interesting. And this year, I think, is one of the most impressive years. And there are some incredibly amusing and funny stories, because there were movies which were arranged, from The Wrestler, which was $7 million, to Benjamin Button, which was millions and millions.
Many millions, yes.
Yeah.